This being the continued readings of the pyramids of Montauk, this is chapter 19, Lost Wisdom.
Namaste, namaskaram.
Earlier, it was mentioned that there is an actual inverted pyramid constructed underneath the Great Pyramid at Giza. If you descend into this region, there is an underground pathway to the Sphinx. This structure is approximately 39,000 years old, the same age as the Shinsi pyramids. And those are located in China, FY. Known as the Hall of Records, this pathway contained wall inscriptions of sacred geometrical symbols that had been handed down during the time of Djehuty. These symbols were his law, which was known as the Law of One. Whom do we serve? We serve the Law of One.
Namaste, namaskaram.
And eventually became known as the mystery schools of the Eyes of Horus. Now, Djehuty we know is synonymous with Thoth, Tooth, Thot, Djehuty, Hermes, Enoch, Thoth, the Atlantean, and his school for the Law of One. Now, in Egyptian mythology, Horus was the son of Osiris and Isis and the brother of Set, or Seth. Osiris was murdered by Set, who cut his body into 14 pieces and scattered them across the earth. Isis was grief-stricken, but gathered all the pieces except for the penis. Her son, Horus, avenged his father by killing Set and finding his father's penis. Then Osiris was resurrected and took his place as Lord of the underworld and judged the dead for their next incarnation. Horus then assumed the throne of the outer world. This myth contains interesting symbology, just in the geometry alone. The 13 pieces of Osiris's body represent the close packing of spheres, whereby 12 spheres fit snugly and geometrically equidistant around the one. The 14th piece represents the 14 faces that form around the packed spheres when they are surrounded by a flat plane surface. Because his body was cut into 13 pieces, Osiris assumed the role of the Lord of the underworld, because there are 13 spheres below the plane surfaces. Horus found the 14th piece of his father's body and accordingly assumed the throne of the outer world. As was stated earlier, Djehuty had many roles in mythology. He also served as the physician of the Eye of Horus. In various stories, Horus would lose his eye and Djehuty would repair it. He did this for other gods as well, and could well be considered a doctor of perception. As the geometry of evolution would unfold, mistakes were made and Djehuty was the function that would correct them. It was this concept of improving perception that led to the schools of the Eye of Horus. These schools were divided into the right eye of Horus and the left eye of Horus. In physiology, the right eye corresponds to the left side of the brain, which is the intellectual, linear, or analogical side. Accordingly, the right eye of Horus concerned itself with those aspects of human function, as the left eye corresponds to the right side of the brain, which is intuitive or creative. In aspect, the left eye of Horus concerned itself with that. The purpose of the schools of the Eye of Horus were to eventually fuse the crystalline structure of one side of the brain with the other. When one actually achieved this, a white powder of gold was secreted out of the forehead during the initiatory rites. This was also known as the illumination of the Eye of Horus, or the opening of the third eye. What was happening was that a chemical process in the pituitary of the brain was cascading hormones through the area known as the third eye. All of the various initiatory rites were done in a manner so as to promote a harmonic relationship between the energy fields of the body and the earth grid. The word hormone itself is suspiciously close to, and in all likelihood derives from the word harmonic. Dictionaries do not seem to recognize this though, but what do dictionaries in the school system do except dumb people down? The initiatory rites address the 7 seals of the body, the endocrine or ductless glands, which correspond to the 7 chakras. That's right, 7 chakras, folks. These rites climax with the 7th or last seal being broken. All of this equated to what was called the opening of the Great Book, and resulted in a right-angle shift of consciousness or transcendental experience of leaving the body. The above account is very intriguing and tells us that at one time in history, there was a precise procedure that was designed to enable one to rise out of the body and reach out towards the full potential of the human spirit. All of this gives rise to different questions. First, what were the techniques? And if they were so good, why did the people who are presumed to have used them fail to make them known to the rest of the world? The answer to these questions lies in the very rhythms of the orbital mechanics of our Earth and solar system, particularly as they relate to the center of our galaxy. First, we will relate how these orbital mechanics express themselves in terms of social consciousness. There was a time in history when we were very advanced, and various wisdom was readily accessible to all who desired it. But it was eventually decided to keep the wisdom locked up in the temples under the guise of priesthoods. The keepers of such wisdom became very obscure. Lao Tzu became one of the most notable examples. According to legend, he was a sage who decided to leave society. As he passed out of civilization, the gatekeeper stopped him and insisted he write down his insights on paper. This became known as the Tao Te Ching, or the Book of the Tao. Lao Tzu then retired into the forest and was never seen again. In light of the other data in this book, it is clear that Lao Tzu pierced the veil of this dimension and actually left it. The famous gatekeeper of Chinese legend is an obvious analogy to the gatekeepers of this dimension. If one studies Taoism as laid down by Lao Tzu and the legends concerning him, one discovers that his main attribute was neither wisdom, virtue, nor perception. It was obscurity. This had everything to do with the consciousness of the times, which, believe it or not, is actually based upon hyperdimensional physics. Let me explain. As the moon and earth revolve around the sun, so does our entire solar system orbit the galactic center of our universe, which is sometimes known as the black sun or our 0-point reference mark. Every 26,000 years, actually it's like 26,395 years, there is an occurrence on Earth known as the precession of the equinoxes. This event refers to the fact that every sidereal year, the exact point of the equinox, as gauged against the night sky, moves a little bit westward on the horizon. For example, if you were looking at the horizon on the spring equinox and saw the constellation Aries, it would appear in location X. The next year on the spring equinox, it would appear just a little bit westward, but not enough to be noticed by the naked eye. The reason it moves is due to a slight gravitational pull on the Earth from the sun and moon. This tilts the Earth's axis and causes it to appear to wobble just a little. But over a period of 26,000 years, the gradual western movement of the equinox will come full circle, and it will end up in exactly the same place it started. The movement of 26,000 years is called a yuga, and we are currently in the Kali Yuga. As the axis of our Earth tilts during a yuga, it will be spinning towards the black sun for one half of the yuga, and away from the black sun for the other half. The black sun is the source of light in our local universe. The spin away from the black sun is light in our local universe, and the spin away from the black sun is termed a negative spin because we are tilted away from the light source. The duration of the half yuga when we are tilted toward the black sun is termed a positive spin. Each half yuga is 13,000 years. What all of this means in terms of universal correspondence is that the very spin of the electrons change from one half yuga to the next. In other words, the electrons inside the atoms that compose our physical world spin towards the light during the Earth's tilt toward the light. During the spin away from the light, the same atoms spin towards the darkness. In terms of evolution, light would be evolutionary, and darkness, or a negative spin, would be involutionary. At this writing, we are just moving into the age of Aquarius and are beginning our spin towards the light center. The veils of darkness are beginning to clear. Hence, information like this is now becoming available in many quarters. In times past, priesthood sequestered sacred knowledge as we moved away from the center of light. Unfortunately, the priesthoods went overboard and a major involution of consciousness occurred. Of course, you don't totally lose everything, and it is still possible for us now to regain all of our lost heritage. The repercussions of this major shift have not fully impacted us as of yet. Several earth changes have already been witnessed as of the publication date of this book, and some people even anticipate a major pole shift. I'd say September 24th, in a matter of 5 or 6 days from now. There are many theories of what is going to take place, but it is not necessary to indulge in speculation. There are plenty of others doing that, such as myself. Hit that subscribe button if you think that's great. Speculation on the future. There is another very important aspect to mention as regards what happens when a yuga shifts from a dark spin to a light spin. This has been charted by many different scientific studies, including extensive work at Stanford University, and concerns the magnetic properties of the dipoles of the brain. Because the brain functions like computer bits based on bioelectromagnetic fields, the entire memory of a being can be stripped when the magnetic field of the Earth loses its intensity or is otherwise affected. This is exactly what happens during a yuga shift, which we are on the verge of reaching right now. From the Kali Yuga into the Sat Yuga, the Golden Age, from the Dark Age to the Golden Age. I believe it's going to take place September 24th. The mystery schools have played an important part in history with regard to the above, as their goal was always to maintain a continuity of thought. This includes the process of self-remembrance from life to life. Of course, this type of situation has resulted in only a select few of the human race remembering anything with secret societies like the Illuminati contracting with other forces to take advantage of implanting and thereby sequestering power for their own ends. If the magnetic grid goes down to zero, we are all in danger of losing our memory. For some, it could be totally wiped out. But it is possible to combat such a catastrophe by utilizing the very electromagnetic fiber of which you are made. By learning how to communicate with your own electromagnetic fields, you can alter and rotate your fields in such a manner so as to retain your own magnetism. All of these fields correspond to geometric shape, but it is an extensive subject and beyond the scope of this present work and video offering. The Sphinx was designed to play a very important role in helping us to retain our memory. As the various eras of evolution end, they are in a sense written up and referred to the database, which we have been referring to as the morphogenetic grid. This information is then, by matter of long-standing universal custom, deposited in the Hall of Records adjacent to the Sphinx. Both the past and the future are stored here and can be consulted for the next cycle of evolution. In this manner, the Hall of Records established an educational process through which we could know what our evolution was going to be. At the end of a yuga, the records are designed to be tapped so as to tell us our direction and to remind us of the ancient wisdom of the past. It becomes obvious sooner or later that immortality in terms of memory is, if not necessarily the body, is a big issue concerning the Hall of Records. If one can tap the records, they achieve immortality, which is the same thing as continuity of memory. It also becomes possible to transcend into the next level of consciousness. As mentioned above, this becomes an area of contention with the mystery schools and a power elite of which certain international bankers are just a front guard. A quick view of history can clue one in on what is being said here. Civilizations have always been known to have sudden rises in their society and then a long period of decline with very little evolution occurring. This is all in tune with the cycles of moving away from the galactic center and then moving towards the galactic center. When the Sphinx was created, if you turn the clock backwards, you'll be able to understand how the rise of civilization reached a great peak and then 13,000 years later began to decline. This was a repetitive pattern, with the last period being the final destruction of Atlantis 13,000 years ago. Of course, the memory of the culture was destroyed too. In this manner, the mystery schools retain their key secret, the idea that you could contain your own magnetic field in what is called the egg, the cosmic egg, or Merkaba, by rotating geometric symbols that in fact are senior to your electromagnetic field in a visualization process so as to set up one's own Merkaba. Now, Merkaba is derived from Mer, which means life force. It can also mean to think or remember. Ka, and these are Egyptian phonetics. Ka means soul. Ba equals vehicle, to carry the soul. So Merkaba, when you put it together, it is the vehicle to carry the soul and is also recognized as an interdimensional vehicle, i.e., for example, one uses the Merkaba when one wants to travel from one dimension to another. The grand design and the purpose of pursuing these mysteries is to reach our highest state of evolution. When we finally reach such a peak, it is said that the records will be put into place and we will begin our transmigration off this planet. If all the information given in this book is generally correct, it suggests we will be bombarded with various information that has remained buried for millennia. If this is true, we have much reason to hope that the age of Aquarius will be one of true enlightenment and understanding. Although we might find that incredible information is in ample supply, we would all be foolish to think that everything is going to come to us automatically with no effort on our part. But there does seem to be plenty of optimism for those of us who want to learn from our ancient past and program our future accordingly. So, as this book is being written, the author says, we are approaching the end time. New Agers tend to cite the Mayan calendar ending in 2012, and Christians remind us of the apocalypse and Armageddon. But actually, with the Gregorian, the differences between the 13 moon Zolkeen Mayan calendar, 13 moon, 28-day month, 13 moon year, 28 day per month, Mayan Zolkeen calendar, where the 2012 needs to be transposed to 2021. That's when all this began. This is when the ascension process really takes place. So 2012, 2021, just a mere, transposition. So, but regardless of what you hear or believe, I'm sure you will agree that plenty of trash is being circulated about the phenomena that might occur at the end time. Many people try to foster the fear that the world will suffer severe earth changes and that most of the United States will fall into the ocean. Then you see the same people selling real estate in Montana to gullible listeners. You have to wonder. Right? That's what I'm screaming. So by examining certain aspects of the past, we might gain some perspective for the future. Accordingly, we will now begin a short view of history that will lead us back to Montauk and some major planetary influences. So that was a reading of chapter 20 from the Pyramids of Montauk, the book Pyramids of Montauk, chapter 20, Lost Wisdom. Stay tuned, folks. Hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for further transmissions from the Umbanda New Earth Center for Consciousness. There'll be more offerings to come, and I hope everyone's having a tremendous day, and I hope this video offering finds you well.
Namaste. Namaskaram.